All right, guys. Welcome back. I appreciate y'all for jumping on again. We're back for session 4. I know the title down there says session 3 right now. I need a new assistant. My assistant's me. I just jacked it up. But I'm really excited to be back on for this with you. Man, I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's been a great summer. We've had the opportunity to talk to and hear from a lot of great coaches, our panel members, and our presenters as well. It's been fantastic to hear the conversations that have gone on and the way we've been able to dive deep into some of these conversations. So I'm really excited tonight because not only do we have a presenter who we haven't had on yet, but we also have a new panel member that we'll introduce here in a minute. But real quick, we're going to pause and thank our sponsor. All right, and that's Simplifaster. If you don't know about Simplifaster, they're the premier coach education platform and technology company in the industry. They do a fantastic job. Their mission is really about not only the technology piece of it, but giving coaches practical things and lessons and articles on their blog to really help them get connected with other strength coaches and be able to do their job efficiently. So head over to their website. It's simplifaster.com. And they're fantastic people. If you have questions on any of their stuff, shoot Mark Hoover a text or a message, or any of the number of people that they've got on staff there. I've had nothing but great experiences with all their customer service people and the staff in general. So filled with great people and a great company to support. But we're going to go ahead and jump into tonight. I am extremely excited to welcome back two of our panel members. That's Coach Mark Hoover at Metrolina Christian Academy and Joe Stakowski at Grayson High School. And thank you both for jumping back on again with us. And I'm extremely excited to welcome for the first time Coach Asia Campbell. She is the owner and founder of Attagirl, which is a coaching and lifestyle brand committed to empowerment through wellness. And Coach Campbell oversees the strength and conditioning program for Mary Lewis Academy, a private high school in Queens, serving over 240 athletes. So I appreciate you, Coach, from coming on. I'm looking forward to hearing from you here in just a little bit when we get going with some questions. I know you're going to bring some awesome depth to the conversation just from everything I've heard about you, the things that you put out. I know you know your stuff, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you.
But our presenter this evening is Coach Tanner Swinford out of Rockport-Fulton High School. I was really important. He came highly recommended. Another guy that, as I started putting feelers out when we were talking about the evolution of this summer, he was a guy that came highly recommended to us. And as I kind of dug in deeper, I was really excited because I hold a special place for people or for coaches who not only do what we do, but also practice it at a real high level. And Coach Swinford, if you a quick scroll through his Twitter will show you that he practices what he preaches when it comes to training. Trains hard, gets after it, and throws some serious weight around, and it moves it really, really well. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from him tonight. So, Coach, we're not going to spend any more time introducing you. I'm going to let you do the introduction, and would love to hear from you for a few minutes here about kind of what your day looks like, how many athletes you serve, racks, and kind of like what your training parameters are as we get started.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Sorry, give me just a second here. I got to make you. There you go.
All right. Everybody see that? All right. Real quick before I jump straight into it, I just want to tell Coach Mullins and Simplifaster just quick thank you for reaching out, giving me the opportunity to present. Really looking forward to diving into everything, but we'll just jump right in. So quick kind of background information about me. So I was just moved into this position as the director of strength and conditioning here in Rockport. It's a brand new position here at the school. Back in March, we hired a new athletic director that recognized the value in having a qualified strength and conditioning coach to serve the student athletes. So I was fortunate enough to kind of get connected with him early on and then be promoted into this position. Before that, my background is primarily as a track coach. I also coach football. I still coach football, but now I'm stepping into more of a full-time role with strength and conditioning. I was a very, very average track athlete. I sprinted in college. Division II, whenever I wasn't hurt. That's kind of a lot of the reason why I got into strength and conditioning. Kind of had a lot to do with my own experience as an athlete of constantly battling injury and really struggling to apply and transfer the qualities that I was developing in the weight room and in training into the field of play. And so it's kind of my two passions are the transfer of the training effect into sport, and then doing what we can to kind of mitigate the risk of injury with our athletes. Some of the main influences that have kind of shaped and molded my coaching philosophy are these guys right here. If you're not familiar with Altus and Dan Paff, if there's one resource that I can recommend to people for just continuing education, it's this. I mean, whether just kind of what Dan Paff will refer to as first principles. If you have a chance to invest into their foundations course, by all means, please do. Then, Charlie Francis, his high-low model is really what I try to follow in my weekly template. Everybody knows Tony Holler, Les Spellman, and then my education through USATF and USTFCCA through Bush Exnator. These guys, you'll see kind of the core principles that really are commonalities between all of these guys will show up in the way that I program and design things for our athletes. So going into the constraints that we have, we don't really have many constraints. I mean, there are variables that we've got to work within, but we've got 12 half racks in our weight room, 6 trap bars, 5 reverse hypers, 7 benches. And these are in addition to the 12 benches that are already in the rack. So if we wanted to have a separate station for any dumbbell movements outside the rack, some plyo boxes, granted, we have those, but they are falling apart. We need to order some new ones. Dumbbells, we have dumbbells starting at 15 pounds. So it's kind of a struggle sometimes working with our female athletes and our younger athletes. Sometimes we'll just use the 5 and 10 pound plates instead of those dumbbells. Kettlebells, we have them, but we only have them up to 50 pounds and we don't have very many of them. With our medicine balls, we're kind of in the same situation as our plyo boxes. We've got a bunch of them. But they are falling apart, and every time we try to use them, it seems like more and more of them fall apart. And we only have kind of heavier ones. So if we want to use them for throws, we're really limited with what we've got. Then we've got bands. I don't know if you can see, I'm actually in our weight room right now, but we've got a lot of space, a ton of open space. And for me, I mean, that's probably one of the most valuable things that you can have in a weight room is space. The only issue that we run into is the number of athletes that we have in here and not having enough racks to accommodate all of them at the same time. But we work around it and we make the most of it. Technology, we time with Dasher. I kind of lean heavily on Google to kind of track and monitor data with athletes. We don't have any, VBT or GPS like you guys were talking about. Hoping to invest into these things really soon. We're in the process of designing and building a new weight room that was just passed in our most recent bond. So really hoping to up our game with technology in the near future. The numbers that we're looking at here, these are all numbers specific to what we're doing right now in the summer with our summer strength and conditioning program with our high school athletes. We're in the middle of week 4 right now. And with our high school group, we're averaging anywhere between 75 at the low end and 100 plus on the upper end. And that's incoming 9th through 12th graders, boys and girls, everybody's mixed together. All sports are combined. The struggle with that many is we run into not having enough hands on deck to accommodate that many athletes at one time. So depending upon the day, and every day is different because coaches are kind of coming in throughout the summer on a volunteer basis. They are sport coaches. They don't have an S&C background. But when they are here, I mean, they're eager to work. They're doing what they can. I try to coach those guys up on the fly and meet with them ahead of time. For those guys that can get here early and coach them up on the workout for that day. We're with them from 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday. We start off doing our field work either in the field or on the gym. We're in the gym from 7 to 7:50, and then we head to the weight room after a short break. All right, so within those parameters, here is kind of the weekly template that we're trying to follow. So I kind of alluded to Charlie Francis a minute ago, trying to follow a low-high model. So we come out on Monday, and that's kind of our medium day, but it kind of leans more on the lower end so that we can come back on Tuesday with higher intensity, Wednesday, lower intensity, Thursday, or high intensity. But on Monday, and I'm kind of experimenting with some new stuff this year in terms of just like the weekly undulation with volume and intensity, kind of looking at percentage ranges to try to target specific strength qualities. You'll see that down at the bottom with accelerative strength on Monday, and then more explosive strength on Tuesday. And then Wednesday is a true low day where we're doing more hypertrophy focused things with our athletes, and then finish it up on Thursday with a true maximal strength lift. Our outside, we're in the gym on Monday, going change of direction. Through this first 4 weeks, it was really more of a focus on the skill of changing direction and deceleration, more closed pre-planned drills. Follow that up on Tuesday with max velocity, a lot of flies outside. Then Wednesday is our tempo or conditioning day. We really just use a lot of agility circuits to accomplish that, and then wrap things up with acceleration on Thursday. All right, so now we'll look first at our speed and change of direction stuff that we do on the field and in the gym. We'll look at it kind of a day-by-day approach. So looking at Monday, and this is exactly what we've done for the last 4 weeks. So on Mondays, we come in, we start off in the gym. This is our general warm-up. Week 1, day 1, kind of had to slow it down, teach a lot of these new movements. Like I said, I'm just getting into this position. So a lot of these athletes that I haven't coached, they're having to learn new terminology and learn a new way of doing things. So the general warm-up was kind of cut a little short, lots of teaching week 1, and then everything for the most part stays the same through the next 3 weeks. And then we get more specific. On Mondays, we do kind of some multi-directional jumps before we get into the more specific work that we're doing that day. So we start off with lateral bounds, and then we go lateral bound into a vertical jump where they lateral bound and then they immediately rebound up and snap down from that vertical. Then we go diagonal bound. They'll land their 5th landing on 2 feet and immediately rebound into a broad jump, stick the landing. The last 3 that you'll see on here, those are more reactive, where first whistle sends the athletes on a diagonal bound. The second whistle, they stick their foot in the ground and sprint. Third whistle, they're coming to balance. Same progression here with the skier sprints. They're skiing side to side, whistle blows, sprint, whistle blows, come to balance. So lots of focus here on decelerating and slowing ourselves down and braking efficiently. From here, we did just a braking series in a grid where we were just in a 5x5 grid. We would do a linear break where their athletes are just running straight ahead, focus on dropping their hips and shoulders into the break, limiting their braking steps to only 2 steps. So we do that with a right foot lead going down, a left foot lead going back. That's the linear break right, left. And then we'll do the same thing where we're braking lateral. So it's a linear sprint, but then we brake laterally. And then going 45 break where we're just braking at a 45. So we're alternating between a brake right and a brake left, going at 45-degree angles in the grid. And so we did that for the first 3 weeks, where we started off teaching the footwork at 50% speed. The first week, we would do 2 reps of each. And then the next week, the first rep, we limited to only a 5-yard acceleration into it. And then just kind of reviewing, continued to teach. And then we expanded the acceleration zone to 10 yards, but we were still focused on trying to limit our braking steps to only 2 steps so we can be efficient coming into the break. Same thing with the lateral break and the 45 break for the next 2 weeks. We just continue to progress the distance. And then this Monday, we kind of took those qualities and put them added a little bit more speed and complexity to what they were doing. So with the brake check, I mean, this is the equivalent of, I see a lot of people running like a fly and trying to stop as quickly as possible. That's what this was. It was a linear 15-yard sprint into a break where I told the athletes that, you're racing through 15, but you have to stop within 5 yards of that 15 yards. So at the 20-yard mark, we couldn't have any athletes stop. I'm in our weight room right now, and whenever nobody's moving around in here, the lights cut off. Here we go. I'm back. And then the same thing with a 45-degree break to the right and left, where they're going 15 linear, they break at a 45 for a hard 5, and then they break within that last 5. So that is Monday with our change of direction work with the deceleration focus. And then we come out on Tuesday. This is probably our highest neural CNS demand of the week with max velocity sprinting. Go through our general warm-up, and then we hit an A series where we're just working on max velocity sprint mechanics, trying to kind of rehearse good front side mechanics, good positions, good patterns before we get into what we're doing. So on this day, we'll split them up into 4 groups. After we break from our warm-up, one group will do flies with the dasher, another group will do wickets, another group will do some extensive pogos, and then the other group will go through a straight leg series. With the flies, week 1, day 1, we limited the run in to 15 yards and then progressed that run in distance from week to week, going 15 to 20 the second week and so on for the rest of the progression. With our wickets, we do a 10-yard run in. The first 2 weeks, we did eight wickets. And the way that I do it is I'll set up multiple lanes and just group athletes accordingly based on ability. We'll have spacings at 5 foot, 5.5, 6, and 6.5. Kind of most of our kids are going to be on that 5.5 or 6 foot spacings, and then our outliers are on the outsides on the 5 and 6.5. So we'll run our flies. One group will be on the wickets, and then one group will be doing pogos. So we're just kind of introducing stuff to them week 1, up the volume a little bit. Week 2, start doing a little bit more single leg work week 2, and then continue to progress. And this week we didn't do any pogos because we were measuring some jumps this week instead. And then the 4th station that day is a straight leg series where they're doing a shuffle, and then a straight leg bound, and then the transition. The transition I really like, where they have approximate 10-yard zones where they are straight leg shuffling for 10 and then transition out of the shuffle into a bound and then out of the bound into a sprint. It's supposed to be a smooth and seamless transition, and more than often they are not. So that's Tuesday. And then moving into Wednesday, come back with the very low intensity day. This kind of is our conditioning. And the way that we do this is we're still in 4 groups. It's kind of hard to read. But we do the first week, we went for 7-minute stations. The second week went to 8. And so that was kind of my thought process in that was the way that we were going to overload them and begin to accumulate a little bit more volume over time was just by lengthening out each of the stations each week. So we started off week 1 with 7-minute stations. The reactive shuffle, it's hard to read, but we went for 5 reps of approximately 4 to 6 seconds where they are changing direction on the whistle. So instead of just going 5 back, 10 back, 15 back, they would sprint and then they would have to break on the whistle. And week 1, we limited that to 3 to 5 changes of direction to kind of stay within that time constraint of 4 to 6 seconds. And then the second week, we stretched that out to 6 to 8 seconds with 5 to 7 changes of direction. And then we changed the drill up week 3. But The coverage drill is just the kids really like this. It is a traditional kickoff coverage drill where you've got 3 defenders at one end of a 30-yard field and then 1 ball carrier at the opposite end. And the defenders, they run a straight 10-yard acceleration, and then they converge on the ball carrier, working on tracking, closing space. Ball carriers working on creating space. One thing that we added to it was that each of the defenders had to tag the ball carrier before their rep was over. So if they over pursued to their sideline and the ball carrier went the opposite way, that defender still had to trail and chase all the way through 30 yards. With the blind tag, we just partnered athletes up on the goal line. One athlete is standing on the goal line facing in toward the goalpost. The other athlete's on the goal line behind them, and they'll tap them on the shoulder. We kind of mess around with this where sometimes they'll start on their knees, sometimes they'll be standing, sometimes they'll have to start from their stomach and tap their partner's shoulder, pop up, and then it's a 15-yard race. And they did 5 reps of that week 1. And then we ran some figure eights just to work on running a curve. Everything stayed the same in week 2, with the exception of we substituted the coverage drill for the shadow drill. And kids really like this. For me, this kind of just is a substitute for traditional tempo. The kids stay more engaged in it. They really enjoy doing it. And so I'm sure you've seen it before, but we do a 15-yard acceleration zone. Then we did a 30-yard shadow zone, and then a 15-yard race. So you've got athletes partnered up on the goal line, and they've got a 7-yard lane that they're running in. The trailing partner trails their partner through that first 15, staying on their hip. And then we tell the lead partner to use that 7-yard space they can weave, brake, accelerate, decelerate. They can't come to a complete stop, but the trailing partner has to stay and ride their hip all the way through that 30 yards, and then it's a race through the finish. And then week 3, substituted the reactive shuttle for just a traditional L drill. Shadow drill stayed the same, but we did lengthen the zones. Instead of going 15, 30, 15, it was 20, 40, and 20. So we get 80 yards worth of work. And we were running those every minute on the minute. So it was more aerobic than anything. Instead of doing the blind tag, we did rock, paper, scissors tag. It's a 30-yard box. You're standing at the middle. If you lose, you retreat. Your partner chases for 15 yards. And then we ran some curve sprints. And so that is our Wednesday change of direction circuit conditioning for us. And then we ramp things back up. On Thursday, we're in the gym with this. We're going Excel. Go through our general warm-up, and then we go through some more horizontal-based jumps. It's kind of as a CNS primer before we hop into our acceleration circuit for the day, which, just like it was on Tuesday, we break up into 4 stations in the gym. We've got some horizontal jumps. Week 1, we just did broad jumps where we stuck the landing. The second week, we added consecutive broads where it's more like a double leg bound. And then we started doing some standing triple jumps week 3. And then today and Thursday, we'll continue to test those to see kind of progress that our kids have made. Got a med ball station where we're going between the legs forward throw. In the second week, we added in the overhead back and just progressed the volume each week. Then we had a band resisted sprint. That's the one thing we don't have sleds. That's one thing that I wish that we had so we could be more specific with our resisted sprint work, but we do band resisted stuff in the gym. The first week we did 4 reps. Second week we moved up to 5. And then last week we did some contrast where we did a resisted 10 followed immediately by an unresisted 10. And then we run some 10-yard flies. In the gym, we limit the run-in to only 10 yards, and we track that as a separate metric than what we do outside when we have a full run-in. So that's everything we do outside and in the gym. And now moving into the weight room, we'll still follow that same 4-day format. So Monday is our more accelerative strength day. going clean pools from the floor.
Coach, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, real quick, before we get into the weight room,
Yeah.
Do you care if we open up the questions on speed stuff?
No, go ahead.
I feel like there was a lot of really good information there. And I feel like there could be some points of clarification, some questions.
Yes, please.
I just, if anybody else listening to this is anything like me, I'm super ADHD and I'll forget what my questions are. That's why I write them down here on the side, but there's too many of them to remember and bring up for later. So we wanted to give an opportunity for our panel, for any of our three coaches to hop in and ask any questions on that speed or really anything that we've heard so far.
Hey, my question's quick. It sounds like you're doing a lot of different sports and a lot of different athletes of different sports at the same time. Two things, just the packs of the summer, certain sports are on the precipice of being in season and have high volumes with their own practices versus a kid who's way out of season. And also are any of the speed and conditioning or COD training. Do you think about that individual's sport in mind when you maybe track their movement patterns or in programming in general?
Yeah, so through this first 4-week block, because we going into this next week, we're on a break for July 4th. I hadn't seen any of these athletes before this initial 4 weeks. So I'm kind of using this 4 weeks as kind of as a way to informally evaluate athletes and get to know them, see where they're at, skill level, ability level with change of direction stuff. And then the second 4 weeks of the summer, that's whenever I was going to really start trying to hone in with being a little bit more specific with what our girls are doing that play volleyball, that are prepping for that. They're in a pre-comp stage because their season's about to start. And with our basketball kids that are a little further out, have some more variance there. Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. I was
okay. Yeah.
I was asking more because I was curious. I wanted to hear your thoughts on it because I know.
Yeah. So that's my thought process. I don't have things down on paper right now. I've got thoughts kind of all over the place in my mind on the best way to do things. And the problem that you run into that I run into is just being able to manage multiple different groups simultaneously without the help of other coaches who have a strength and conditioning background. And that's everybody's problem. We're all in that exact same boat. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out the best way to manage that and equip coaches to do that whenever you can't be there. So that's a problem that I would love to hear feedback on, because that's kind of where I'm left scratching my head a lot is whenever whenever we get into the school year, that won't be as big of an issue because instead of training everyone at the same time, we'll be in different athletic periods throughout the day, easier to manage. But right now for the next 4 weeks, what's the best way to approach this that allows each athlete to be in the best possible scenario,
For sure. Coach Campbell, what you got?
Hey, Coach Swinford. So far, this is really impressive, and I love the attention to detail that. Sorry, I'm just reading something that popped up. That you put into the programming, and I just wanted to. You might have gone over this already, but what sports are involved in the sessions that you're running now over the summer? Are you coaching girls and boys together? I think you said you're coaching everybody together, right? And
yeah,
all of the grades together. Incoming
9th through 12th, boys and girls, all sports. And
wow,
it's a handful trying to, and there's about, with our high school group, we average about 100 ish. It'll range. Some days we might only have 80. Sometimes we might have a little over 100. But yeah, that's what makes things difficult. And this is only a problem that I have right now. This won't be an issue in August. Once things get rolling, the groups will be much smaller. But because it's a present problem, that's kind of why I wanted to present within these parameters to get pick your brain on, for the next 4 weeks, how can I make this better for our athletes?
That's even more impressive, hearing that again, that you have so many athletes of so many different skill levels in the same room, and you're really trying to guide them through this in a general capacity where they can all kind of catch up somewhat with each other, maybe some of them that are a little bit more, progressed, and kind of get them to a baseline so that those later 4 weeks can be used to kind of specialize a little bit. But okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I do to try to mitigate some of that being overwhelmed by just the sheer number is I meet the coaches who are there. I meet with them ahead of time and kind of walk them through the workout. Hey, these are the common errors that you're going to see. These are some of the things that you can, these are some of the cues that you can give them. These are some of the corrective measures that you can take if the kid looks like this whenever he's squatting or whatever. The problem is, they don't have the trained eye to see it, and they can only do so much. But I'm glad they're there. It's just having more eyes in the room with that many people. It's an absolute necessity.
And it's a moment to educate. It's like an educational moment, because then they can take that knowledge that they're getting from you and take that to their respective sport and use it to improve, movement mechanics within the sport, because a lot of times I'll go to practices or games and see a lot of inefficient movement that can get so much better. And, if you're kind of ingraining that into the athlete and then they go to practice and it's also ingrained there, it's just it's so helpful to you, since you don't have a ton of assistants and you have to rely on sports coaches, make the best out of it.
Yeah. And on that note, just a little bit of context about our kids, especially our boys, is that they would sleep in this room if they could. They love this, and their training history up until now is that the only way to make progress in the weight room is by just grinding yourself down to dust. And if you're not limping out of the weight room, then you've wasted your time. There has been no focus on movement quality, whether it's in the weight room or things that we do outside. Like I am much more movement biased as a coach than I am weight room biased. And getting kids bought into that is tough right now, because they love powerlifting. Like in the spring, most of these kids are kids doing powerlifting, and they won't come out to the track to run track or whatever. And so that's kind of a lot of the bias that I'm trying to work, not really against, but try to re-educate, create a culture that values movement and things like that.
Nice. I'm looking forward to hearing about the strength and how everything kind of gets pulled together.
Yeah, thanks.
Coach, you get a lot of resistance from the kids in about maybe trying to regress someone that might not be able to do a back squat, or is that a battle? I'm guessing, because I'm sure that you've got, out of your 100 kids, you don't have 100 that can do you need them to do. How's that been coming into a new position?
It's tough. Because I really, really value movement quality over everything, as opposed to let's just load it up and that's what they're used to. They're used to, okay, we lifted this morning, let's go max out on deadlift after school today. And that's just what it's been. What has really, really helped is that our dude has really bought in, and we'll get into it in a second, but with like he just blew a 405 pound front squat up like nothing a couple of days ago, and we hadn't touched a rep over, I think we had 4 reps in that 4 weeks over 85%, and he just blew it. He PR'd in his bench, and so I'm really, really hoping that the other kids look to this guy and see the progress that he's making, and see that he is bought into what we're doing, and that will help mitigate some of the resistance that we have from those guys. But yeah, you're spot on. It's a lot.
Are the coaches that got your back on that, or
yes,
that's the big thing I found. I'm telling you, I've been in both situations. I'm in a better one now, but where there's just some old like back squats and power cleans win football games, so our freshmen need to be doing as heavy as they can go type stuff. But if your coach is on board, it'll be a lot easier transition.
for sure. So that's some resistance that I've had. And then kids sticking within the prescribed percentages is another one. You know, like the other day we were doing clean pools from the floor, and I want to say it was 75% of their power clean, and he had what would have been probably 110% of his clean on the bar. And I've had to stop sessions and tell kids, like, if I see that, like if I'm taking the time to do this for you and give you this workout sheet and all of this stuff, I expect you, unless a coach, I understand that some days you come in here and that bar is moving hot. We'll tell you, man, you're flying today. Let's load some weight on that bar. But then there's other days where you come in, and you guys with VBT know this, but the other days come in and 80%'s moving like 95, and we've got to adjust the load. And that's a big struggle, right? That's probably the main struggle right now, is helping them to understand the concept of bar speed and the importance of it.
I tell you, if when you can get some of the VBT, just regardless of what it is, even if it's the cheapest one you can get, then when they can start to understand that, it became a lot easier for me when we added VBT from my previous position, because then you can tell them what your goal is. Because kind of when you say our goal is to be explosive, or then it just doesn't. But when they actually see that live feedback, you can say, here's the reason we're using 50% for 2, and you could get that for 20 if you wanted to. Yeah. Because we need you to be at this. That eventually, when you get that, that'll make your life a lot easier. In that case, it always has for me. And
we're seeing that on the field whenever they're getting objective feedback on fly times. Oh man, their intent is just through the roof, and none of them have ever sprinted like that before. But when they have that feedback, you're right. It drives intent up, and I look forward to the day where we have that. I think whenever we get our new weight room built, we're supposed to have iPads on racks. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, so it'll be legit, but that's like we're 2 years out from that happening, I think. So got to be patient until then.
That's awesome. Well, hey, real quick before we jump into the strength portion of it, I had a question, and it's a very different question. It's going to be a lot easier for you to answer. All right. I've toyed around with band resisted sprints going straight to unresisted.
Yeah.
My issue was kids literally trying to take the band off and trip. Right? How do you efficiently get your kids out of the band so that they can get the sprint and it doesn't disrupt you, like the purpose of what you're trying to get it to do?
Yeah. So we were going in 3 lines, and we're in the gym on the baseline. I've got cones out every 10 yards. So the resisting partner, from what I could, and on that particular day, I was floating around checking on the coaches that were running the other stations, but I don't remember there being any inefficiency getting out of the band. I mean, but the way that we did it was just the 3 lines are going. So 3 kids are sprinting, 3 guys are resisting on the band. And then they go hard through that first cone, take the band off, just step out of the band, and then they're set on the next cone.
Okay.
Set. So we
So
basically
you're not trying to get it to you're allowing them to come to that stop real quick, drop it off, and then sprint.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I've seen I've seen all the I think I can't remember who it was now, but the fancy, I don't even know what they're called. You're probably gonna laugh at me. All right, but the fancy system where they have the belt and they hold on to it, and you release it and then they go.
I think it's called a bullet belt. I think. Is that right?
Stikowski sounds like something like up his eye.
Yeah, we have them called rip cords.
Rip cord.
That's it. Rip cord.
Rip cords, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there trying to think, how do I make one without buying one? Yeah. So anyway, that was just a generic question. All right. It's all you again.
All right. Is my screen still shared?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, got to get through this. Going the wrong way. Okay, here we go. Monday. going accelerative strength, clean pulls from the floor, and we paired that with a vertical jump into a snap down. We're really just focusing on kind of lower limb stiffness at the ground. I tell them that, whatever joint angle you make contact with the ground at, I don't want to see a lot of compression or change in joint angle once you make contact with the ground. Tell them I want you to be like a brick on concrete. And then from there, we go bench, and we paired that with band pull aparts. So the way that we structure everything to accommodate the group is that, for example, here, we're in groups of 4. We have 12 half racks. And so we'll have 12 groups of 4 outside of the rack here doing clean pulls and snap downs outside of the rack. And then the other 12 groups are inside of the rack, and they're doing bench and band pull aparts. And I put a timer up on the board, and I've got times where this is where you start set 1, this is where you start set 2. We don't have rack coach or anything like that to do it, so I just put it up there manually. And then they go through their sets, and then they know that in the dead time between the end of their last set and the rotation that they're supposed to be switching and setting up. So if they're in the rack doing bench, they'll move out and immediately get their clean set up, and vice versa. If they're out of the rack, they'll move in to the rack, and then they'll do bench. And then from there, the group that was in the rack doing bench will stay there and do front squat, while the group that is out of the rack will stay out of the rack and then do dumbbell incline with barbell bent over row. And then I put dumbbell RDL and plank in here, but honestly, that was just kind of a filler in case we had the time, but I didn't like the flow of the session. It was too rushed. We didn't have enough time between sets for outputs to be what I wanted them to be. And so the E, we didn't ever even get to that. I copied and pasted the sheet in here. So that's Monday. And remember, that's paired with so it's not perfect. Today is technically supposed to be a low day. But the most taxing, I kind of base exercise order and high-low stuff off of Charlie Francis's motor unit recruitment chart. I'm sure you've seen that. And so really the front squat and the clean pull are at the higher end, but that's it in this workout. And then everything else in the gym, before this, we're coming from the gym where we just finished up the change of direction, decel stuff. And then Tuesday, we are coming off the field where we were doing max V, doing flies with full run ends, short ground contact plyos with the pogos, straight leg bounds, things like that. And then we come in, we're going hang cleans. And then from there, we're going to seated dumbbell squat jump. I tell the kids that this is another, going back to the issue of just guys wanting to go heavy, is we'll have a kid who squats, 275, and they're over there grabbing the 60-pound dumbbells, trying to do dumbbell squat jumps from a seated position. They don't understand. And so it's just a matter of educating those kids and helping them understand. But that's just a very lightly loaded jump for us. And then one of the great things about having the space and the high ceilings to do so, we pair that squat jump with a medicine ball underhand height throw. So I tell the kids we've got about, it's about 30-foot ceiling that I tell them to try to put a hole in the ceiling, and some of them are getting very, very close with the 12-pound ball. And then from there, do more of like a dynamic effort back squat, where we're progressing from 30 to 35 to 40, and we drop it back down this week. And that's paired with a double leg bound. So it's just consecutive broad jumps. The focus on everything this day is to move fast on those double leg bounds, limit ground contact time, and try to complement the things that we're doing outside. That's probably what I try to accomplish in the weight room more than anything, is to make sure that we're sending clear adaptive messages to the body about what we need to adapt to today. Is making sure that our training every day is complementary and it's compatible to other things that we're doing. And then we go glute bridge with kettlebell swing. I'm not a big fan of kettlebell swing simply because of the fact that we are limited by them, that we only, it's a hard movement to overload whenever. So if you have suggestions for that, go ahead and keep those in mind. All ears. We only have up to 50s, and sometimes we'll just swing a dumbbell, but even then we're limited with the amount of heavy dumbbells that we have. So that's Tuesday, and then Wednesday is our outside. We're coming from the field. We're definitely by far our highest volume day. Those kids get worked out there. They have fun doing it. They've got smiles on their faces, but by the end of it, they're pretty worn out. And so we come in, and this is honestly the first time that I've included complex work into what we're doing, just kind of experimenting with it. Got the idea from the system. Dang it, there went the light again. Hold on. Here we go. It's not
You
the.
could just leave the light off, and then if anybody walks in, they're just going to think you're crazy.
That might happen anyways. So I'm using, it's not the Javort complex that Parker talks about from the system, but it's similar. I think they're a little bit more basic movements, and they're movements. I chose these movements. So it's an RDL, high pull, hang clean, front squat, and then a push press. Just because we're not the best hingers. We struggle with our front rack position. So we're working the front rack when we catch our cleans, and we're working the front rack whenever we go front squat. These percentages are based off of their power clean. So we're going 30 week 1, 33, and then 35, and then dropping it off and taking a set off week 4. So that's happening outside the rack. Inside the rack, they're doing a split squat ISO. They went 4 by 20 seconds each leg week 1, and then 4 by 25 week 2. And I'm telling them that we're loading that. So they're using dumbbells. They're shaking all over the place, trying to hold that position, but just trying to build up some tendon strength through this. And then we pair that with side planks. And then from here, this is the only time where our rotation changes. So instead of just rotating from in the rack to out of the rack and out of the rack to in the rack, we've got 5 reverse hypers in the back of the room. So we'll have a group in the back of the room doing reverse hypers and farmer carries. And we'll just be in a 3-station rotation where one side of the room on 6 racks is doing C with the band, the tri extensions and the barbell curls. The back of the room is doing D with the reverse hypers and farmer carries. And then the other side of the room on those 6 racks, they're doing the post grip push-ups with the banded lat pushdowns. And then Thursday, we're doing power clean from the floor, and then back squat in the rack. After they're done, they'll rotate out of the rack to in the rack. If they were out of the rack, they'll stay for the dumbbell shoulder press. That's paired with RDL. And then we're going pull up with reverse flies and lat raises. And that is everything in the weight room. What other questions do we have?
That's all you, Coach Campbell. Go ahead.
Guess it would help if I unmuted myself. So kettlebell swings, as far as overloading, I know with some of your maybe more experienced athletes, you might want to think about banding your kettlebell swings. I mean, I get, you're limited. You said it only goes up to like what, 52?
We have 50s. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's one way, but then again, depending on the training, age of your athletes, I too get a little nervous using bands. But there's a time and a place for everything. I think overall, I'm super impressed by the entire presentation. I think you are doing such an amazing job. Like I said, I just keep going back to the fact that you have so many athletes of so many different ages, different genders working out with each other. I did want to ask you how you incorporate or how much you incorporate coaching things like recovery and nutrition at this at this point in the game before they're getting ready to kind of jump into their respective seasons.
Yeah, those are, and again, going back with, what I was saying with Coach Hoover a second ago, is that their like context coming into it, their training background is let's grind ourselves down to a pulp and hope for the best. And so the dead time between sets where they're actually resting instead of it being just this constant marathon movement, activity equals achievement kind of mentality. Is I try at the end of workouts before we start, I always try to educate in any way that I can, because it's a big cultural change for them in the weight room. They're so used to just feeling like death when they leave here that they don't feel like they've accomplished anything if they don't feel that way. And so preaching the importance of recovery and nutrition and how, this is just 2 hours of your day. If you think that this is not where adaptation takes place, if you're not actually doing the things, and if you're not, doing the things for the other 22 hours, then you're never going to the bank. I use that analogy to deposit the check and get the gains that you're working so hard to get, that you're ready. You're going to be running in place if you're not doing those things. But yeah, very informally, I would like to start, posting things. And we use Sports U. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Sports U, but just starting to post more stuff out there. I try to get my athletes to follow me on Twitter, and I try to retweet as much good content for them to see, so that they're hearing it from other sources and seeing it from other sources besides me.
Yeah, it's always important. And it's been one of the things working with high school, and especially working with high school girls, like they just don't eat at all. I mean, they're running off of Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and a lot of high schools, I don't know where everybody is geographically, but here in New York, or at least at our high schools, they eat lunch at like 10 o'clock in the morning. So by the time I would get them, outside of the summer, by the time we get them, they haven't eaten for like 3-4 hours, sometimes even more than that. So I feel like at this age, it's honestly like, they say keep it simple, stupid. Like just keeping it as simple as possible is the best return on investment, because if you can hammer in just a couple of core principles and they start to kind of buy in after they're seeing the results, like it definitely catches on. And now I have like the whole basketball team going out for, to make sure that they're getting chicken in their salad before they go to strength conditioning. So, it's definitely something that you have to develop. And like you said, it takes time. And it takes buy-in, because they're so used to doing things a certain way. And some of their coaches might be used to doing some things a certain way, that you really have to sometimes, it's incremental, the progress that you make. But that's awesome. I think you're doing a kick-ass job.
Yeah. One thing that we do is that we've gotten our nutrition department through the school district is really good. And they actually, that fridge right there is full of like chocolate milk and things like that provided by the school. We've got fruit and things like they bring a breakfast for them every day. And it's just
great.
Things like fruit, like a Pop-Tart or a Nutri-Grain bar, just quick carbs. And then they'll also bring chocolate milk and that kind of stuff for them to have immediately after they finish.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
One of the things that's been a game changer, and then I'm going to let other people ask questions, was where my school is located, we have a lot of stores, fast food places. There's CVS, which, is a source, of getting food. So I made a guide of all of the area restaurants and fast food places, 7-Eleven, McDonald's, all those kind of things. While it's not my first choice for them to be eating these things, like this is what they can afford, and it's quick and it's easy, and they can grab it before they can get on the bus. So I went through each menu and I put together different ideas of meals that they could eat, mostly focusing around protein and carbohydrate content. So even just like handing them something like here's some ideas of things you could just put together, whether it be at home or if you're grabbing them from the gas station or the supermarket. Gives them that autonomy that they want to feel at that age, but still helps them keep it relatively realistic, given like their constraints as kids.
That's we're a very, very low income school district. And so I like that you're taking into account the fact that, some of these kids can't afford these things. So what are the on a budget athlete nutrition tips that you can give them out? Because our kids would need that for sure.
Yeah. It's making it as accessible and as easy as possible.
Oh yeah. Hey, those are some really great tips. I love the ability to take ideas of things that may not be optimal, but giving your athletes something like, hey, if you're going here, here's what you're looking for. One other piece is, again, I'm kind of working through the same situation, Coach Swinford, that first getting here, I don't necessarily know all the athletes. I don't have contact information. I don't really have an efficient way to get in contact with them and share information. And then obviously, like, I want to use the time that I have with them for the things that we need to get done in that short amount of time, but still need to communicate. Something to think about is your sport coaches, for the vast majority of them, your sport coaches have a way that they communicate to the team as a whole. So if you can, and again, this is another way for you to like potentially score buy-in opportunity from your parents, your coaches, and your players, is ask those coaches if you get them a graphic to send out to their team regarding post-workout nutrition, pre-workout nutrition, like any of those kind of things, if you can get them to send it out to their team, now it looks like to your parents and your players that your sport coaches really bought into you as a coach. So that's another opportunity. Another resource that I've discovered and I've reached out to her a few times is Wendy Earlbeck. It's IRLBCK. I take her graphics. I've messaged her a few times like, hey, do you care if I send this to my team? And she's like, no, not at all. So
roll it on the TV, man. If you got a TV, that's what we did. We started scrolling Wendy's stuff on the TV.
I retweet her.
And then we did exactly what Coach Campbell said is we had this was when I was at York. It was a very low income school. All the fast food and the 7-Eleven and stuff. I went in there and took pictures. We scroll. I got that idea from Mike Bewley because you can buy that from them. The Critical Reload TV or whatever, but we didn't have the money to do it. So I just walked through the convenience stores by the school and took pictures of stuff. And I was like choose this. But someone, Coach Campbell might have said it. But I can't remember. It was about you don't want them to eat fast food. But I mean, someone said, I can't remember who said it on one of the things I was sitting through is they used to fuss at the kids when they'd come in with biscuits or with McDonald's, like Bojangles or McDonald's. And then they realized, man, they're eating. Like they're eating. So I'm not going to fuss with them about eating, So, I mean, and at that age too, I mean, I mean, the guy that I coached when he was in high school that just got drafted into the NBA, like Hunter Tyson, he told me when he first stepped on campus at Clemson, they needed to get him up from 185 to 200. And they told him, what could you eat every single day and not get bored with? And he said, cheeseburger and French fries. And he said the whole summer, during the summer course, after his 10 o'clock class, a GA would walk up and hand him a bag with a cheeseburger and French fries and watch him eat it. And at 2 o'clock, a GA would walk up and hand him, and he gained his 15 pounds. And he, they're so active that, I mean, that's not the premier way of doing it, but at least they're getting the calories they need. Yeah.
I wish I had somebody walking up to me and me.
I'm telling you, my problem would be I'd put that 15 pounds on in a second. But
I don't need the 15 pounds.
Another thing that, and I don't know if you would need this or not, but at Metrolina, it's a little bit different. So I'm in a private school. It's a little bit different financial situation. The head football coach started to have me do 2 and 3 minute videos that he sends out on his weekly email to every parent. And we covered nutrition and we covered recovery and just things we wanted to do. And that led to our summer. Like, we didn't even really ask. The parents just said, hey, if they should be eating peanut butter sandwiches and bananas and chocolate milk, why don't we just have a different parent groups sign up every single week, and they
Yeah.
provide 4 days worth of, and so the parents come and they walk through the lunch line after they get done working out, and they get all this, and now they're bringing them granola bars, and how parents would get. And that all started with a 3-minute video where we were just like, hey, if you can make sure that there's peanut butter, jelly, and chocolate milk around the house, that would probably be a good thing. So, and because just like Coach Campbell said, because the video came from me, but the email came from the head football coach.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, oh,
He's the guy with the,
yeah, he's the guy controlling playing time. It must be right. So that's just an idea that
I like that.
Coach Hoover, Coach Stowe, any other questions y'all have for him?
I thought it was fantastic and very well put together.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, I appreciate y'all jumping on. And one thing that I was extremely impressed with was how, and this is probably going to come out a little wrong, but how detailed you were in the simple things. Like especially when you first get to a place and you're first implementing a new program. And I've said this so many times, like resisting the flashy things can sometimes be difficult, but your main goal is to find out in those first 4 weeks that you're in, what can these kids do? What can they not do? What regressions are appropriate for them? Where we need to meet these kids so that as I train them in the last 4 weeks of summer, and then we roll through this through school, how can I set these kids up for success? And I think so many times we as coaches are in a rush to implement those flashy things and those systems of evaluations and this and that we forget, like we still have to apply a stimulus. We still have to get work done in the summer, and balancing and teeter-tottering on that line and on that border is really, really tough. And I think, Coach, you've done a fantastic job of doing that by being ground-based and by being speed-focused, and then transitioning it to have a very complementarian approach in the weight room that's still going to drive kids to get faster. Still, those kids that want to get bigger are still going to get bigger, and you're definitely doing it right. And I'm taking good notes to set you up for the next 4 weeks. So I appreciate you for being willing to share with us tonight, and being able to take the time out of your schedule when in the first 4 weeks you're swimming and there's many other things that you could be doing right now. But I appreciate you for jumping on and being with us tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity, and for everybody that provided feedback, man, I really, really appreciate it. If you would, please, text me. My number's right there. If you think of other things that come to mind later, please, I would love to hear your feedback. I don't have enough people that I can kind of trust and reach out to, and I don't have enough of a network of people that I can go to with the questions. So please, by all means, shoot me a text, email me something, and then we can connect later down the road.
No doubt. Well, we'll work on getting you in touch with some really good people. I know I'll be texting you here shortly.
Yeah,
so appreciate you, Coach. For everybody that's on, for those of you, I appreciate you. I see a bunch of names that keep popping up. We are off next week for 4th of July. So enjoy that 4th, get some fireworks and some family time. And then we'll be back for 2 weeks in July, the following 2 weeks in July. Have a great weekend, guys, and finish strong on the week. We'll see you.
Thanks. You
See ya.
too. Bye, guys.